Alexandra Eala shares the advice she got from a Grand Slam finalist ahead of the Australian Open. Alexandra Eala will head to the Australian Open full of hope, in what will be her first main draw match at the Melbourne event. It marks the completed set for the Filipino, who featured in the other three majors throughout what was a breakthrough 2025 campaign. Just 20 years old, it has been a mesmeric past 12 months, in which she has seemingly broken every tennis record held in her home country. And yet, she remains hungry for more, having just received advice ahead of the Australian Open from a former Grand Slam finalist. Alexandra Eala receives advice ahead of the Australian Open. Speaking to the press in Melbourne, she spoke about everything from the one-point slam to her Filipino fanbase. And when she was finished lauding her compatriots for their continued support, one reporter then asked her about Leylah Fernandez. A former US Open finalist at the age of just 19, and now 23 and an established star on the WTA Tour, the Canadian will surely have plenty of crucial advice to bestow upon a player like Alexandra Eala. Well, she revealed as much in her answer, noting, "Yeah, I think Leylah is super funny. The advice she gave when I played was to win the last point," laughing. "But I was able to ask her about some of her experiences on tour. I'm so thankful to have had those moments, because not everybody gets to talk up close with their idols. I hope I can embody some of what she was able to do in her success, yeah." Eala admitted she'd been surprised by her fans in Australia already, and that's even before the first Grand Slam of the year gets underway. Alexandra Eala's Australian Open dilemma. For 99% of the players who have qualified for the Australian Open, making it into the second week would mark a dream come true. However, Eala finds herself in the unique and unenviable position where, if she did accomplish that feat, it might be tinged with an element of sadness. After all, such is the scheduling for January, the second week of the Australian Open marked the only time where the WTA could fit in their new 125-level event in the Philippines. Eala, as a proud representative of her nation, was naturally delighted at the announcement of this new event in Manila. And yet, if she succeeds beyond expectation in Melbourne, she will be forced to miss out on the inaugural event in her home country. Some may see this as a win-win for Eala, but it does represent an odd dilemma which few players will have ever experienced before. Between the lines of victory, Alexandra Eala's journey and the wisdom that lit her path to Melbourne. At the cusp of the 2026 Australian Open, the tennis world finds itself watching a story that feels almost cinematic. Not simply a rising star attempting to make her mark, but a young woman carrying with her the hopes and dreams of a nation. Alexandra Eala, known to fans and friends as Alex, steps onto the blue courts of Melbourne Park for her first Australian Open main draw with not just racket in hand, but a rare blend of confidence built on history and humility, and advice that resonates far beyond the baseline. This is not merely a journey of a tennis player. It's a narrative of resilience, learning from legends, and the transformation from potential to promise. The rise of a phenomenon. By early 2026, Alex Eala had already reshaped expectations, not just for herself, but for what tennis could mean in the Philippines. At just 20 years old, she carved her way into the top 50 of the WTA rankings, a historic high for any Filipino player in the Open era. A milestone many thought distant when she first stepped onto the international stage. Her journey into the spotlight was anything but gradual. In the 2025 Miami Open, as a wild card ranked outside the top 100, she stunned the world. One by one, she toppled some of the sport's most accomplished names, including former Grand Slam champions like Madison Keys and Iga Swiatek, reaching the semifinals and announcing her arrival on the big stage. In the 2025 US Open, she became the first Filipino in the professional era to win a Grand Slam match, dropping jaws and igniting pride as she rallied from a seemingly insurmountable deficit to triumph in one of the most dramatic matches of the year. And now, just weeks before she would walk onto Rod Laver Arena for her Australian Open debut, Alex shared something that might be more significant than any ranking or victory: the advice she received from a Grand Slam finalist. A mentor figure whose words have become a quiet compass as she steps into new territory. Advice from the top, a champion's whisper. The tennis community is full of fierce competitors, but it is rarer still to find those who, having stood on the brink of the sport's greatest glory, pause to guide the generation that follows. For Alex Eala, that guidance came in the form of wisdom from a former Grand Slam finalist, a seasoned competitor who had himself walked through the triumph and turmoil of tennis' most intense moments. Though the specific identity of that mentor remains underreported in public summaries, the essence of the advice, to play with heart and perspective, not fear, has spread through Eala's camp like a quiet force of encouragement. What made this exchange so poignant was not the notoriety of the advisor, but the timing. Alex was entering the Australian Open with history on her heels, her record-breaking ascent, the collective expectations of her homeland, and a spotlight that can either illuminate dreams or magnify doubts. In such moments, even the most gifted players can misplace focus. The advice she received helped shift her perspective from pressure to possibility, an invaluable mindset in a sport where the mental game often proves more decisive than the physical one. It is a reminder that behind every scoreboard statistic lies a story of human complexity, and that even the fiercest competitors are still, at their core, students of the game. Journey over glory, the heart behind the game. What separates a champion from a contender is not simply a string of triumphs, but the philosophy with which she approaches challenge. And in Alex's philosophy lies something deeply resonant. She plays not because she must win, but because she loves the journey. This was evident long before she stepped onto Melbourne's hard courts. In an earlier season, reflecting on the peaks and valleys of her 2025 campaign, from stunning upsets to tough losses, Alex spoke not of trophies, but of learning. She credited her growth to the experience itself, the grind of the tour, and the sense of perspective that comes from both victory and defeat. She said simply that tennis kept her grounded, reminding her that there is always more to learn and someone always better to chase. That groundedness, so often overshadowed by the glamour of headlines, is in fact what makes her story so compelling. It speaks to the athlete who knows that winning is not a destination but a byproduct of discipline, that the value of advice isn't in the title of the person who gave it, but in the truth it inspires within the player who receives it.